Welcome into Payoff Pitch, everybody. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast. It is Tuesday, June 20th. We are back from the long weekend. Brendan Glasheen joined by Sean Zerillo. He's back. Zerillo had a nice break. He's back in action. He's in the Action app. His disappearing act is over. He's here. Anthony DeBundo is here. It's Dinger Tuesday, so we'll get Dinger Tuesday picks at the end of the program. We are here most Mondays, also Tuesdays and Fridays during the season. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Payoff Pitch. We greatly appreciate it. Full slate, Zerillo, to throw you right back in the fire. 15 gamer. What, if you'd like, quick 30 seconds on how your trip was, and it's fully separating from baseball. Are you all caught up?
Yeah, it's nice to, and there's been a ton of streaks while I was gone, so I'm not sure if it's the fact that these streaks have happened and sort of created parity throughout the league, but it's nice to kind of keep an eye on the standings and then come back after a week and not have been fully tuned in. But it feels like, and Anthony and I were talking about this last night, the Rays, the Braves, I'd say those teams are locked for the playoffs. Every other spot feels wide open. Now, there's some teams who are more likely than others to make the playoffs. But I mean, in terms of like the divisional spots are open, right? Like, I think the Rangers are probably going to be a playoff team, but I don't know if they'll be the division winner or a wild card. So the actual, I'd say Rays likely AL East champion, Braves likely NL East champion. I think every other spot is still up for grabs. And obviously, like, there's a ton of season left, but I feel like at this point in the year, we have a better idea of who the playoff teams are and aren't. I think even by July, August last year, there were so many teams that had like a 90+% chance of making the playoffs. So the league feels like there's a ton of parity right now. The Giants have moved up past the Dodgers. The NL West is just completely wide open. So I think the league is in a cool place. The fact that we keep seeing these top prospects come up, Henry Davis getting the call for the Pirates, it's fun. There's like this big injection of youth into baseball, and the rookies we've had the past 2 years, I think, are pretty phenomenal in terms of like the actual rookie classes, and there's still more coming. So I'm excited about where the game's headed, and I think that, just getting that reset to be like, oh, the league is actually in a really good place, stepping away from it for a minute and coming back. It's actually, I think we're trending very nicely for baseball. I think the new rules help a little bit too. Getting more action, more balls in play. But I actually like where the state of the game is headed right now.
That is a great call out, because of all weeks you took off, now that you're back, there are 10 streaks of 5 straight wins, minimum 5 straight wins, minimum 5 straight losses in the entire league. That's a third of the league where there's a big streak going on. So, DeBundo, do you have something to say? I didn't tee you up to be like, hey, welcome to you too. Sorry. Hi.
Well, I'm good to be back as well. I was out last week.
Were you?
I was. Yeah, I was not here last week. I was still paying attention.
You put stuff in the app, so you're still
exactly
you're still breathing.
I took a half vacation, so I was still betting and wrote a couple columns while I was away. But
I didn't know. I'm sorry. Now, I'm a horrible host. I didn't know you were gone too.
It's okay. I'm not taking it personally. But I agree. The Phillies are hot. The Giants, the Marlins. This NL wildcard race is going to be really fun down the stretch. The NL West looks wide open. I don't know if Arizona will hold off San Francisco and the Dodgers, but it's going to be really interesting. The Padres seem to be teetering on figuring things out, although they blew the game last night. The NL Central, the division I've talked more about than any other division in the history of baseball, with the Cubs and the Reds surging and the Brewers and the Pirates folding. Very happy about that for a couple positions. I know Sean is also on the Reds. So it's going to be a really fun summer. The Rangers are not only holding off Houston, but gaining. Houston has really struggled. Their lineup looks a mess right now. They're throwing out a lot of replacement level pitching because of injuries and Jordan being out till at least the All-Star break. So there's a lot of real parity going on. And in New York, the Yankees and the Mets are, the Mets are odds on to miss the playoffs now after their June swoon. And the Yankees without Judge are throwing out borderline AAA lineups. So it's been a very interesting couple of weeks in baseball, and it's only going to get more interesting as we get near the trade deadline, because there are just not as many sellers this year. Last year, there were way more sellers than buyers. This year, it looks like right now the opposite.
All these giants, like not the San Francisco Giants, but these big teams, right? The Yankees, the Dodgers, they've either gotten banged up or have just had extreme underperformance throughout their rosters this year. So all of these teams that we've kind of seen as these, sort of Death Stars for the past few years hovering over everything, they're not as imposing this year, which is really opening everything up. So I think that's why it's so fun. The parity just feels really strong other than the Oakland A's. And it feels like I really wouldn't be surprised if some wild team made a run, made it to the World Series. We'll talk about the Marlins and stuff and, how they might end up falling off. But there are plenty of teams who just, if they got to October, made a run. I'm not going to be shocked.
All right. Well, welcome back to both of you. It makes sense now because we had a heavy dose of Charlie DiSturco last week on the podcast. It was actually Charlie and I on Friday. So it was really, really bare bones on this podcast. So we're fully loaded, I think, to a degree this week. But it's summer. We understand. It happens. Let's begin as we normally do with a best bet for Tuesday. It's a full slate. Everyone's in action. Sean, you can go first.
Yeah, Cardinals Nationals over 8.5, 9. You could take the over 8.5 to -135 and over 9 to -115. It's my largest projection edge. Don't necessarily love this or any other bet on today's slate, but this is my largest projection edge that I have. The Nationals, a team we've talked about, are better against lefties than righties offensively. 13th against lefties, 27th against righties in terms of WRC plus. The Cardinals, I guess, continue to say are better against lefties than righties, but the splits do not show that this year. They're a top 10 offense against righties, closer to league average against lefties. But in terms of how I project out their players, I still project them to be a better team against lefties going forward. So expect that split to sort of narrow or even potentially flip for the Cardinals over the rest of the season. Don't like either of these bullpens. The wind is blowing in from right field here, but we might get some rain in this game too. And anytime there's rain in the forecast, if it ends up raining, it actually increases the offensive environment for that particular park. It's a bit counterintuitive, but rains tend to actually boost offense overall. So I made this total 9.6. You could bet over 8.5. Again, as I said, to -135, over 9 to -115. Largest projection edge, but nothing I would go particularly heavy on. Keep everything nice, even, and steady today.
Bundo, best bet for Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Blue Jays and the Marlins over 8 runs. It's up to -110 now. You can find out there. Currently, I'd played up to -120. I'm just a little bit concerned about Yuri Perez now. So he's getting now upper limits of his pitch count. His innings limit, rather. And there have been whispers of kind of like how much are they really going to pitch him as a total this season. So he's already at 66 innings across multiple levels with AA and the major leagues. He's only 20 years old. He's never thrown more than 75 in a full year. So, there are some real concerns about how deep he's really going to go this season, which is another reason I'm a little skeptical of the Marlins. But I also have questions about Yuri when it comes to his command. And I don't think he's shown starter level command thus far. He's gotten away with it. But the pitching location numbers on almost all of his pitches have been below average. They're all below 100. And you can just look at the heat maps on Perez. They're a little bit concerning going forward against a Blue Jay lineup that is one of the best fastball hitting lineups in all of baseball. So you have a lineup that crushes fastballs. Perez has only really consistently been able to command that pitch. But again, if he's not able to command the breaking pitches and this Blue Jays lineup sits on him, he could run into some trouble here. So I do have some concerns. The walks are at 3.6 per 9 right now so far in the big leagues, and the projection systems think he'll be better than that. But again, I really doubt that he can maintain. Of course, yes, he's not a 1.8 ERA pitcher. He's going to regress from that level, but I do have question marks about him. And, for a while, and this is the one thing about splits, when we look at, year to year type stuff, the Marlins can't hit lefties. And we said that coming into the season. But, the guys they've found between Soler having a career season with his power and his domination of left-handed pitching, Brian De La Cruz having a bit of a breakout and having, positive production, especially against left-handers as a big bat. That alone has helped raise their floor against left-handed pitching. Yusei Kikuchi, very up and down and very enigmatic as a pitcher. He has always had the stuff, but the underlying metrics are still not that positive on him. And also, one more thing about Perez is let's run through some of the lineups that he's faced this season. it's not nearly as good as Toronto. So, he has he gets the Reds at home, the Nationals at home. He goes to Coors and has, what was his worst outing of the season at the Angels. So that's a good lineup. But then he gets Oakland, Chicago, and Seattle, the White Sox. So he has not faced any lineup that matches like this Blue Jays one. And I do think that there is regression looming for Perez. So I took the over.
Regression looming for the Marlins too. I mean, we could just take care of our Marlins minute right here, right? Edward Cabrera, shoulder impingement going on the IL. Sandy, we know, has taken a step back this year. So now you're relying on Brian Hainig, Braxton Garrett to take a step forward. Jesus Luzardo has been okay. But
Rogers hurt.
Yeah, it's the pitching depth that might have been terrifying for some teams if the Marlins made it to October healthy is starting to fall apart, and we're not even turning the calendar to July yet. So I believe Anthony wrote down the Marlins are now plus money to miss the playoffs. Pacoda has them at 35% to make the playoffs. Fangraphs has them closer to 48%. So that Fangraphs number is in line with the market. The Pacoda number says there's extreme value in them to miss the playoffs at plus money. So definitely something I'm going to consider adding. It seems like the Marlins have hit sort of their peak for the season with where they're playing right now. Arias getting back to 400, 2 more 5-hit games. This is probably the best it gets for Miami this year. So I think this is where it starts to trend poorly.
Yeah, and the kind of the thing with Miami that was kind of interesting was that they could have, in theory, leveraged their pitching depth, which they had a ton of, and everybody needed, to go get another bat to add to this lineup. But they can't do that now. They don't even have the pitching to get away with and really staff their own roster. Like if Yuri runs out of innings, which I do think is going to happen, and they're not going to push a 20-year-old kid when they're, hovering in the wild card race. If he runs out of innings and the rotation runs another guy short, Rogers is looking like he's going to be done for a little while. Sixto Sanchez, we have heard nothing on his front on like whether he's going to come back and pitch in the major league level. So there's just not enough depth to get through with, Alcantara being not the dominant ace that he was last season. So yeah, I bet plus 115 this morning. And I agree with Sean that this is like the top of the market ultimately on them. And Pacoda being at 35, I think Fangraphs is up this morning to, I saw 53. So you even just take the average there and you're still well below 50%. And that would put them in the, make plus 110, 115, a plus EV bet in my view.
Hope Tanner McGrath could bear with us during that segment. Our Marlins man at Action Network. By the way, quick note on Kikuchi. 7 straight games he's allowed a home run. He bugged me last week against Baltimore. He was not good. And the Orioles traded so many runners against him, and it really bothered me. So just my 2 cents. Let's find out if we're going to fade the public today. 2 big public sides in the Action app, in the pro section. You go to the money percentages where the folks are putting their moolah for these particular games. We've got Rangers and White Sox. The people love Texas. They're one of those teams that are rolling. They've won 3 in a row, but generally they dipped and they've kind of got back on track. Nathan Eovaldi's on the mound against Dylan Cease. 93% of the bets, 99% of the money coming in on Texas. And those Reds, the Cincinnati Reds, they have won 9 straight. They're 3 games over 500, half game ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers. They are getting 90% of the bets, 90% of the cash to take down the Colorado Rockies. Colorado's lost 6 in a row in the basement of the West. Either of those, Zerillo, jump out to you in terms of, do we want to take the White Sox or the Rockies and fade the public?
I would actually lean to the Rockies at current pricing, but I prefer the over in that matchup. I bet over 9.5. I would take over 10 to minus 110. The Rockies are a team you do not want to touch total or overs with, I should say, against lefties. They are the worst team in baseball against left-handed pitching, close to 40% below league average, but they are decent against righties, 87 WRC plus, so they can put a little bit of offense together. Also going to be better at home than on the road, so you always have to make that downward adjustment, moving the Rockies from Coors elsewhere, but Great American Ballpark, one of the better offensive venues in baseball, so not as significant of an offensive downgrade. I made this total 10.4. Not sure if I said that or not, but it's just 2 below average starting pitchers, 2 below average bullpens, and 2 offenses who I think can score enough to get this over the 9.5. The Reds have dropped from plus 4,000, where we bet them to win the division, 40-1, down to basically in line with everybody else. when I bet them, the whole division was between plus 300 and plus 500 to win, except for the Reds, who were 40-1. And now they've won 8 straight, and they're on top of the division. And it seems completely bizarre, but also there is a little bit of magic going on with this team, right? Joey Votto coming back, homering in his first game back. Who doesn't love Joey Votto? One of the best guys.
Go ahead, base hit up the middle the other day.
It's same game. Yeah, he had the. Yep. I mean, Scott Van Pelt on SportsCenter said you can't write this stuff. Like, you really can't. It's the kind of thing that is becoming a bit magical. And with how wide open this division is, I don't see any reason why the Reds can't win it. I really don't, especially if they go out and add more pieces. I'll keep saying it. Christian Encarnacion Strand should not be in the minor leagues, but for the fact that they have Votto and they have all these infielders who they can't really figure out how to play. So they're going to be able to move pieces around at some point. I think they're probably doing some talent evaluation and figuring out who they're okay dealing. Maybe trying to get Nick Senzel out of there at one point because he's playing the best that he's ever played potentially. So yeah, the Reds have some decisions to make, but if they make the correct moves, they can absolutely win this division. But in terms of today's game, I like the over. And Anthony's going to bring up Dinger Tuesday for this game as well. I'm just going to preempt him. Elly De La Cruz should never be plus 630 to hit a home run. This guy has legitimate 40-plus home run potential over full season in major leagues. Votto, again, last night, said he has the most power he's ever seen. And he's seen a lot of players. Fastest guy he's ever seen. Seen a lot of players. The raw power is something I like to bet on in terms of Dinger props, because all you need to do is just connect once. Like, you're not betting on matchups necessarily as much, or you just need a guy to hit a ball hard once, and getting a good number to do that in a total where it's 10 plus 630 for Elly De La Cruz the homer, I think is really interesting. I'm not going to steal Anthony's pick because I think it's, the other guy I considered betting from this game, but yeah, Elly should just never be that number to homer in a game where the total is 9.5, 10.
All right. Good tease for the end of the show. When we get to DeBundo's Dinger Tuesday picks, he'll have an article up later today. That total, by the way, Zerillo's up to 10.5 at BetMGM.
Yeah, I'd leave it at 10.5, but if you can get 10 minus 110, that's fine. And bet it last night at 9.5. It's one that went my direction, but first 5 over, maybe, if you can get it over 5, that would be an alternative angle. Always take a look at that when you see the full game totals move. You might be going to bet a number, right? And you see the number tick up half a run away from you as you're going to bet it. Check those first 5 markets, because sometimes books adjust the full game market. They're not as quick to adjust the derivative market. So always take that into consideration. Look for, it's the best way I can give a analogy to it is when you see the total in a football game go up, right? If the total moves from 47 to 49, yep, the juice should increase on the passing touchdown props for the quarterbacks. Like, everything that correlates to more scoring should also go the other way. So if Elly De La Cruz was plus 630 to homer with the total at 9.5, he should be plus 620 or plus 610 to homer with the total at 10. Just consider, the derivatives and everything that relates to more or less scoring adjusting in accordance with it.
DeBundo, you have a thought on Rangers, White Sox? As I said, the pitching matchup is Eovaldi and Cease.
Yeah, Nate Eovaldi's somebody that's gotten a lot of hype, really, for his start to his Rangers run here, and he's been excellent thus far. He's been one of the best pitchers in the American League. You look across the board, 2.59 ERA. The FIP is sub 3. There's a lot to really like in this profile from Eovaldi. Walks are really down for him, and so the elite command, good strikeout to walk. He's always had the good strikeout to walk numbers. The problem for Nate in the past has been the homers. And when he's been bad, he's given up over 1.4, 1.5, last year, 1.7 homers per 9. This year, he's only giving up 0.58 homers per 9. So I do think there is ultimately some regression coming in the home run department, but I'm a little bit more concerned from a Eovaldi perspective about his fastball velocity, because we saw this last year. He had a good start to the season and then really faded and ultimately ran out of gas and ended up injured by the end of the year. And you could just see from start to finish in the season that his fastball velocity decreased considerably. So last year, he was sitting around 94 when the wheels started to come off. Well, he started the season 96, 95.7, 95.9, 96.4. That was his first 4 starts. His fastball velocity peaked against the Yankees on April 29th, 97.5 miles an hour. Since then, there has been a little bit of leakage to the point now where his two lowest fastball velocities of the season have come in his last two starts. 95.1 against Tampa on June 10th, 94.8. So he's into the 94s against the Angels in his last start. So I think now you're paying a premium on Eovaldi. And so I have question marks about him. And Dylan Cease is, I don't want to say back to what he was last year, but the last couple of starts have given me encouragement. I watched his last two outings as a dynasty owner because I was considering shopping him and selling. But I'm back in on Dylan Cease because I like what I'm seeing from the slider again, which was one of the best pitchers in baseball last year and hasn't quite played to the same level this year. But again, encouraged by the game log data on the strikeouts for Dylan Cease. He had a stretch where he wasn't striking anybody out, but his last four outings, I know a couple of them came against Detroit, but 10 strikeouts against the Dodgers, 7 against Miami, 6 against Detroit, 8 against Detroit. Encouraging from that perspective after a couple of rough outings for his standards prior to that. And it's come with, a slight tick up in the fastball velocity. So I like the White Sox at home, plus 115.
Excellent. Very good. Looking forward to that one. So there's your Fade the Public segment. Moving on to underdogs, our favorite underdogs for Tuesday. Zerillo, anyone jump out to you?
Red Sox, but first 5 innings only, down to about plus 114. I don't see a substantial difference actually between Cutter Crawford and Bailey Ober. That surprised me because I would have assumed without looking that I viewed Ober as a better pitcher, but running everything through the model, I actually make them pretty comparable. Crawford has been both bullpen and starting rotation this season. Rotation past few outings, 3.2 expected ERA, Ober 3.8. The way that pitching models view them, though, as potential pitchers, they have Crawford's range anywhere between 3.75 to 4.5 and Bailey Ober between 4 and 4.5. So the relative floor of both seems equivalent. Crawford may actually have the higher ceiling in the numbers. Again, I find that interesting. Not something I would have assumed going in. The Red Sox, though, also have the better offense, top 10 against righties, Twins closer to league average. So I just made this first live line about plus 105. Down to plus 115 is fine. Twins have the bullpen advantage. Don't want the full game, but first 5, I think Crawford can snipe him.
Red Sox are streaking too. They've won 5 in a row since everyone wanted to bury them in this city.
Mm-hmm.
Sweep the freaking. Just when you think they're gonna collapse, it hasn't happened yet.
This league is pretty wild right now. I mean, it's
this league.
It really is though. Like I was looking at the standings last night and I wrote down all the teams that were on streaks because I've never seen that before. I don't think I've ever seen this before where we have, as Brendan said, 10 teams who are on streaks of at least 5 games or more, 6 of which are winning streaks of 5 games or more. It seems so bizarre to me. So yeah, I don't know what's going on right now, but it's made the league a lot of fun. But yeah, the Marlins winners of 5 straight. This is the time to fade.
I will say this is a beautiful way to transition into my underdog as I take the host reins from Brendan right there. 2 teams that are on winning streaks. One of them will end tonight. The Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies have both won 6 consecutive games coming into this evening series, 3-game series in Philadelphia. First trip for Spencer Strider to the bank since the Rhys Hoskins bat slam when Strider's velocity fell off in the 4th inning and the Phillies went on to win that game in the playoffs. Pretty emotional moment. Tonight will be a fun one too. And guess what? Spencer Strider has a velocity problem again. And I am worried about Spencer Strider, not to the level, that I think you're seeing some, in the public start to catch on to this. He gave up, 4 homers against the Tigers in his last outing, who were one of the worst offenses in baseball. But the underlying data on Strider, the fastball stuff plus is down, mainly because the fastball velocity is down. Instead of sitting 98, 97, high 97s consistently, his last couple of outings, he's been a little bit lower, and you're starting to see some 95s and 96s popping on that radar. Now, for Strider, when you only have 2 pitches and you're somebody that hasn't always had plus command, so you just kind of trust your stuff and sit in the zone and dare people to hit it, you can do that at 97, 98, 99, give up the occasional homer and get it and be fine. But when you start to sit 95, 96, these major league hitters are teeing off on Strider's fastball right now. So I am concerned about Strider living up to the ERA market projection that he's sitting at. I'm not yet ready to say like it's injury, but there's something under the hood that's wrong with Strider. I think he's overvalued here. And so I like the Phillies at plus 120 or better with Ranger Suarez on the mound. Suarez, not a stuff guy, but has had good command his last few outings, finally locating the changeup, and has dominated some good lineups in the last couple of weeks, including Arizona and the Dodgers. So I'm encouraged by Suarez's improvements after a really rough start off of injury. And I am discouraged by Strider on the road here in Philly tonight. So I like the Phils as an underdog at home.
For a second, I thought I was listening to the Philadelphia Phillies radio network that set up for the game tonight by DeBundo.
Oh, I'm excited. So it'll be fun.
Spencer Strider is in a lot of markets the favorite to be the daily strikeout leader today in all of baseball on this 15-game slate, right around 2-1, plus 200.
The Phillies will strike out, but they're a pretty aggressive lineup too. They like to hunt early in the counts, which is another reason that I'm a little concerned for Strider if he's trying to, sneak fastballs by these guys. But certainly would not bet that number on him to lead the league in strikeouts today.
But this is the first time I feel like bringing this up is legitimate. Again, the Philadelphia Phillies win total. They are now over at Pacoda, 89.1 projected wins. Getting nervous. Let's move on to our final bets before we go. I know it's a big slate, and these guys are both coming back, so they have a lot to say and a lot to catch up on. Final bets from Zerillo and then from DeBundo, and of course, Anthony's got his Dinger Tuesday pick. So go ahead, Zerillo.
Joining Anthony on the Phillies here, plus 135 or better. Just in terms of where Strider's relative level has dropped, it's actually kind of a comparable viewpoint to how I saw Jacob deGrom last season, where it was no longer 100-101, it was 98-99, and just at that level, challenging guys in the zone, you're going to get hit a little bit more frequently. We saw deGrom blow up in Atlanta towards the end of the year, blow up in the playoffs a couple of times. You just become more vulnerable to the home run ball. If you're going to be grooving fastballs, challenging guys to hit it, you're not going to get away with it as often. But in terms of where you would put his ERA, last year he was a 2.39 expected ERA. This year he's closer to 3.25, about a 1-run drop. And looking at his past 3 starts, that dip in fastball velocity, that's kind of roughly where I put him still. So he's still sort of that like 3.3, 3.4 type pitcher. Even at the velocity level where he's sitting now, could still be very effective. But it is a tier or 2 below where he was earlier in the year or where he was last year. So that's just worth noting about Strider. Phillies plus 135 or better is fine. But the Braves do smash left-handed pitching. So could be an over game tonight. Don't like the over. I made it about 8.5. But that was my initial lean, was to bet the over in this game. I think it could be more of a high-scoring matchup between the Braves and the Phillies. The Pirates at plus 115 or better. Henry Davis, first overall pick from 2021, getting the call yesterday. He's good at 2 things, hitting home runs and getting hit by pitches. Getting hit by pitches is skill. Most people may not realize that, but it actually is. And it can be repeated year over year. Craig Biggio, one of the best ever at it. Anthony Rizzo, maybe the current best one at it. Henry Davis, 118 minor league games, 24 home runs, 28 hit by pitches. Now, that's great for getting on base and stuff, but it's also makes your increased likelihood of getting injured and, shortening your season. So like Henry Davis a lot. I think the Pirates are more interesting if they bring up guys like this. But I just wish O'Neal Cruz was still on this roster, and then they'd be really fun because these like O'Neal Cruz, Ellie De La Cruz matchups are going to be electric. But yeah, Pirates today, plus 115 or better, I think is fine. Henry Davis, spit injection of life. He's not a good defensive catcher, by the way. If the strike zone ever gets automated, Henry Davis going to shoot way up in terms of value. And Adley Rutschman going to go down in terms of value. It's really interesting for these teams who like now have to sort of forecast where the rule changes are going. But just kind of think about that in terms of like offensive catcher with bad glove increases in value. Guy like Adley Rutschman, who gets a ton of value from being a good defensive catcher, still a great hitter, just not as valuable if you automate the strike zone. So I think all that stuff is really interesting. The Brewers and the under, both bets for me. Don't really love it. I end up betting on Colin Ray all the time. I think it's just because of the matchups he's getting, not because I actually like him. But yeah, this is, a full-blown vomit emoji under here with Ray and Ryan Nelson at under 9. And then the Giants going for 8 straight? Are they already at 8 straight? Going for 9 straight tonight.
Yep. That's right.
After their walk-off last night. They absolutely own Josh Hader. Even money, fine. -101 is fine on the Giants. They've done a really good job promoting guys to fix their defensive holes this year. They were the worst defensive team in baseball earlier in the year. Casey Schmidt is going to win multiple Gold Gloves throughout his career, especially once Arenado retires. They've brought up a lot of youth, and it's worked, and they have more coming. So don't count out the Giants. I've drastically changed my opinion on the Giants from earlier in the year relative to how I view them now. And then I think they're going to keep getting better going forward. So yeah, the San Francisco Giants trending in the right direction, like them today. NL West is wide open. Dodgers fans should be a little scared.
All righty. I know that is bizarre. Dodgers and Padres, 3rd and 4th place, respectively. And it's no longer like a healthy game back, 2 games back, 4.5 back, Dodgers, Padres, 8.5 back. What a way to lose a game last night, the Padres. Holy crap. They're in some trouble. DeBundo, you've got a quick NL MVP angle before you dive into some other Dinger Tuesday picks.
Well, Corbin Carroll was 100-1 like 2 weeks ago to win the National League MVP, despite being projected to finish second in WAR. Now he's 5-1. He's had a couple of hot weeks. I am not interested in Carroll, but I know that people have asked me about it and kind of it's come up. I think for him to win MVP, he would need to be miles clear of Acuna. And I just don't really see that being a possible case in any world where Acuna is healthy for 160 games. So I'm not really interested, especially now at this price, in Carroll, but you're seeing a lot of helium on him in the MVP markets. I'm going to hold off personally. Just wanted to address that. I just think you're at the peak of the market, and Carroll will eventually have a cool off period. And, Betts and Freeman are still even better candidates to make a run at Acuna just because of the fact that if he wins Rookie of the Year, which he will now, barring injury, then he's going to have to really distance himself to do that. And this was interesting. Mike Trout, in the year that he came up as a rookie, was a 10-win player and did not win Rookie of the Year. Now, granted, it was before really those kind of analytics became a huge part of the discussion. But again, you have to really, really separate yourself to win as a rookie. And I don't think Carroll's going to be able to do that with Acuna playing it on a pace where he could go 40-40 pretty comfortably. Go 40-60, 40-70 if he really hit the homers. So, no interest in Carroll at MVP. I did bet some under 7. Zerillo and I are head-to-head. Never loved that. But George Kirby and Garrett Cole on the mound. Just think that this is a good matchup for Kirby. The Yankees lineup, OBP without Judge is sub 300 right now. Kirby's not going to give you free passes. And I think it's a very favorable matchup for him against this lineup tonight. They're going to have to pretty much homer their way into some runs at Yankee Stadium. Under 7 up to -115. That did move, took under money overnight, and then Zerillo bet the over. So now it's come back a little bit. So you can get it around -110, 115. And then for Dinger Tuesday, Jorge Soler is plus 370 against a left-handed pitcher with a home run problem. There's nobody better in baseball against lefties this year than Soler. So that's just, I think, a misprice and should be closer to 3-1. And Ryan McMahon, the player that Zerillo hinted at earlier in the Reds game, I have to look at the profile on the power for Ellie and whether he does project better as a lefty in the switch because he will be seeing, or he was supposed to be seeing a lefty, and I think he's going to see one tonight. So will he hit from the right side? That would be interesting. I think he projects better from the left. So that would be interesting. But otherwise, yes, 630 on Ellie's a good price as well. But I like McMahon in this matchup. The thing about Great American Ballpark tonight, huge boost toward the home runs and the wind blowing a little bit out. Ballpark Power is at 33% above average on home runs at Great American tonight, which is, I think, part of the reason you saw the market move toward the overnight as well. So I took some McMahon, no problem with Ellie. I've been a bit of an Ellie skeptic in terms of like his production game to game because of the strikeouts, and I think he's going to struggle early. But of course, the power and the speed, I mean, from a home run and stolen base perspective, is always going to be interesting as an angle.
So I think it was supposed to be Kyle Freeland starting for the Rockies. Now it's going to be Noah Davis, who is a right-handed pitcher.
But
so that may
he
change.
also threw 2 innings like 2 days ago. So I'm not
Noah
sure
Davis did?
What that looks like from like how they put this together. The Rockies, it's kind of really, really bad. It's like almost A's level here. It's kind of concerning.
The one thing I do want to comment about with Ryan McMahon, he's hitting on the road this year for the first time ever. He normally has like a 200-point split between his home and road stats, which is probably why I didn't pick him, in addition to the fact that the LE price was just better. But McMahon, if he is going to hit on the road this year, is going to end up having a monster season because he normally puts up like a 40 home run season equivalent half season on Coors Field. But when you OPS at 670 on the road, it's going to tank your year. So yeah, almost matching a 50-point differential between his home and road splits this year. That's why Ryan McMahon is crushing it. 2 home runs in Atlanta the other day. So just getting a guy who's locked in right now. I mean, I strongly considered him, just like the pricing on Ellie.
Zerillo also sniped him in the fantasy draft 1 pick before I wanted him. And then we engaged in like a huge fight over it. And I'm really mad I didn't get him. So
Yeah,
that's
maybe
I digress.
still be engaged in our league, even with all your injuries, if you still had Ryan McMahon.
Noah Davis last pitched at the end of April against Arizona. That's what I'm just looking at the game log here.
Oh, did I have that wrong?
April 29th against Arizona. That was the last we saw Noah Davis.
I swore he came out of the bullpen the other day. I got to update that.
Rockies are just a bunch of interchangeable creative players at this point. It's, I don't blame you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, he hasn't pitched. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so I like that match.
He did throw 2 innings, though, Dubundo. You had that right.
Likely to get maybe get Votto back in there today. And, just like to talk. And I think Votto low plus 400s to homer. Similar to McMahon, maybe plus 420, and Ellie's plus 630. Votto is a 25 home run bat, 30 home run bat, max, and he's hurt right now. I know people want to bet on him because he's cool, but take the plus 630 on Ellie.
Okay, loaded show. Zerillo's back, Dubundo's back. You can find these guys in the Action Network app if they add anything to the slate. What's up?
He threw 2 innings in the minor leagues.
There we go. And now he's back in the majors for the first time in 2 months. I just had to count months out loud. Okay, very good. And he has not been very good. He pitched okay in a few games, but Arizona lit him up his last major league appearance. Okay, gents, good to have you back on. And we're off and running on another week of Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. We return on Friday. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for tuning in.